Roger, you're loud and clear.
Good afternoon, everyone, once again, and excited to be here in Mission Critical Episode 3. On our next segment, this one is near and dear to those who love to travel. We're talking about hotels, we talk about venues, we talk about resorts and destinations, but how you get there typically is by airplanes. We've been hearing from our friends at, everyone from United to American to Delta, Lufthansa, or Singapore Air, and everyone around the world of how they, the airlines, are handling the COVID crisis and to make it safe and comfortable for us to fly again. Who we haven't heard, at least from what we've been seeing, is from actually those who make the airplanes. So today we are very, very proud, excited, and honored to have Airbus. We have Dr. Catherine Thibault, who is the cabin air quality lead for Airbus Commercial, joining us on our segment. In her role, she is in charge of defining and implementing strategy in the area of cabin air quality. In essence, to all of us laymen, this means she makes sure that it is safe to fly on an Airbus plane. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Dr. Catherine Thibault from Airbus Commercial.
Hello, John. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to your viewers about aircraft ventilation. And why we at Airbus understand and how we understand that it is safe to fly on board an aircraft in the time of COVID. I'm here in Hamburg in an A350 airplane made by Airbus.
There was a recent analysis of air travel data that shows the risk of contracting COVID-19 during air travel is extremely low compared to typical daily activities. Can you share some more analysis and insight into that from your view and from your experience and Airbus?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to talk to your viewers about cabin air ventilation and showing you, what we do to keep people safe on an aircraft. Just like you, I actually have flown over the summer and I felt very comfortable. So I'm going to tell you a little bit why this is so. So actually, one thing that you can see behind me is the entrance and the outlet of the air. So they're there and at the bottom. So the ventilation in an aircraft is very specific, and it's really designed to be that specific because, of course, the environment outside is a harsh environment. So we want to make sure that all our passengers are at a comfortable point and at comfortable temperature and comfortable airflow. So there is a lot of air coming into the cabin. What we say and what we know is that there is about an air exchange rate that allows about 2 to 3 minutes for the whole air into the cabin to be exchanged.
So it's just 2 to 3 minutes that takes for that airflow in the cabin to circulate, and then it keeps going and keeps going.
Exactly. And
okay.
Actually, so some of this air is coming from outside, and it's a fresh air from outside, and some of it is recirculated. Now it's circulated through HEPA filters. So people might by now be very familiar with the HEPA filter terminology.
Very popular term right now. Very.
It's a high efficiency particulate arrestance filter, so that's what it stands for. What it really means is that it's very efficient at capturing not only big particulates, but also small viruses. So that gives you a really fresh and clean air coming back into the cabin. Again, with a very high air exchange rate, top to bottom airflow, like I just showed you. And then you can also see that in the cabin, there's the seats, that provide some barrier for all those particulates that might be into the cabin to be blocked. So a very design airflow, and also an airflow that allows for the ventilation to be very local. So the person in row 1 doesn't breathe the air from the person in row 10, and none of those contaminants.
And if I understand correctly, like where you're sitting, if the person sitting in front of you wouldn't even have that same air, in essence, there's like this invisible barrier between each person because of the way the airflow was designed on the planes.
Exactly right. So as you can see, all those inlet and outlet are very well distributed around the cabin, so that there's very little longitudinal flow in the cabin. So it's really very local. So that's what makes it really safe for people, and the fact that it doesn't mix the air, just like in other environment where, like a restaurant, you might have really a lot of mixing. This is not in an aircraft.
Yeah, I think like you just said, like a restaurant, if I understand correctly, the air inside an airplane is cleaner and safer than even in a commercial restaurant or elsewhere because of the speed and the way the design of the aerodynamics of outside the plane, inside the plane, and the seating. You guys have thought about this way before COVID even came about, that we need to keep everybody safe and healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, we do a lot of modeling. So we have designers that use very sophisticated tools to be able to model the temperature and the airflow in the cabin so that we maintain everybody very safe and very comfortable. And so those same tools we have used to inject some particulates. So to look at what those particulates that might be emitting when people are coughing, for example, or breathing or sneezing, then where do they go and how fast do they go out of the cabin? So because we have a very high air exchange rate, then those particulates exit the cabin in about, a minute and a half or 90 seconds.
A lot of things are going on today in the travel industry, and particularly everybody's working together. Hotels are coming together, competing brands, competing destinations. And in this case, as we're talking with you, Boeing, Embraer, and Airbus have come together. And because, a lot of people say, well, only Airbus said this, only Boeing said this, only Embraer said this. And you've all come together and conducted some modeling and, as you call it, probabilistic and analytics research. And you've combined combined efforts. Can you share a little bit more into that and what brought you all to the table?
Yeah, so of course, when it comes to safety, we are all together and there is no competition. So we are all, in it to make sure that all we do in terms of flight is safe. So we have collaborated with Boeing as well as Embraer. However, we have done the CFD modeling separately because the ventilation on a Boeing aircraft might be a little different, or is different from on an Airbus aircraft. So we all have done similar things, and we all have come to the same conclusion that really there is a very low risk of transmission in the cabin, so in an airplane. So I think that's really comforting to see that we came through a little bit different ways, but we come to the same conclusion. So I think that also adds a lot of value and a lot of strength to what we say.
And there was a recent article that came out this week that also was referencing, the risks of flying and catching COVID, that they said you had a greater chance of being hit by lightning than getting COVID on a plane. And that's just, it's already, extreme low risk to get struck by lightning, but to get COVID on a plane, and that's even lower, that's incredibly comforting. And once again, just another, for those who either are at risk, have family members, don't have a choice not to travel because they have to do it for their job or whatever, to see a family member. So that's really comforting. And to know that that's that low, once again, wear your masks and travel safely. There in all those results, though, if just to get and make sure we're very clear to the point, the clear message to everybody is wear a mask on a plane. Am I correct?
Exactly. So that's absolutely right. And we recommend for everybody, all the passengers, to wear a mask. And this is, what we do in other modes of transportation. So certainly people have to listen to, the airlines, the flight attendants that reinforce that message. Absolutely, wearing a mask in those days is really very, very important. It's a case of really a layered approach, of risk mitigation. So you have the mask on yourself, then you have the airflow, you have the HEPA filter, all those good attributes, and then you have the mask on other passengers. So all this together works together to have a really low risk, as we say, in the aircraft. So it's essential to wear a mask.
Right, and but it's okay though to take it off, to have to keep it on for that hour, 3 hour, 10-hour flight. The entire time you can hydrate, you can have some food, but when you're done or in between, just put it back on and you should be okay, correct?
Exactly right. So of course, now people, especially in longer flight, they're going to need to drink, which is really, of course, essential and very important.
You have to be hydrated on a plane, right?
Absolutely, and it's a low relative humidity environment, so it's a dry environment in the first place. So we really want people to stay hydrated. We also, want people to keep eating and be comfortable. However, those periods need to be really short and
Mhm.
put on the mask, as much as possible.
Okay. And the other question, we were talking about on those, let's just say, as we call it, across the pond, so from the United States over to London or Europe or those long haul flights. Is there any concern with getting up and moving out and about on the airplane just to stretch your legs with this, or is that also once again a low risk as long as you're wearing your mask?
Yeah, so it's a low risk as long as you're wearing your mask, and also you can social distance. Of course,
Hmm.
not be all packed together and in a small environment. For
Sure.
example, what we say also is during deplaning and boarding, you need to listen to the flight attendants that
Okay.
usually these are really helping people being separated and kind of doing a sequential, boarding and deboarding. So that's also really important to listen to those advice and those considerations.
Okay. I really appreciate all your insight and particularly your telling us from the designer of the airplanes how safe it is to fly. I mean, we hear, like I said, a lot of those who we purchase our tickets to fly on our commercial, but those who built the plane are telling us and sharing with us it's safe to fly, you can fly, and that means so much because this industry of travel and tourism cannot happen without those planes in the air and people in them and going to these destinations, these resorts, these hotels, these restaurants, and these activities. And we need to get this industry thawing and going and humming again. I know it's going to take time. We know it's going to take some comfort levels, but hearing from you all and sharing that, to say it's okay to fly Lufthansa or ANA or Delta, whoever it is your airline, it's safe to do it. And I can't thank you enough for sharing that. That means a lot to us here, particularly at Mission Critical. Before we, since we still have you on board today, and before we deplane, is there anything left you'd like to share with the audience that we may have not spoken to or referenced during our conversation?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, for me personally, I really thank you for the opportunity to explain to people, why it is safe and what is the ventilation like in an aircraft. Because I've talked to other folks, in my travel, and although it might be obvious for designers and for people that live and breathe air travel or design an Airbus, but it's not obvious for everybody. So I know some people, may think that it's like a really closed metal tubes and there is no fresh air. So it's
Right.
really not the case. There is a lot of ventilation. And for myself, like you, I have traveled in the summer, going back home to the US, and I feel very comfortable. And so I would, say to people that we have done our work to show that from a data science point of view, it is safe. Now, of course, it's everybody's decision to make that decision to fly.
Right. Right.
But we want to give people the information that helps them to make an informed decision.
Well, I can say this for myself, after this conversation, after recently flying, I'm ready to go, and I have gone. I feel very comfortable taking my family, and I do hope that this leads a lot of comfort for those in the decision makers in those corporate travel departments, CFOs, COOs, and the like, to say, hey, you know what? It's time when they're comfortable, and and all their corporate legal teams say it's okay, for the liability purposes, but it's okay to go. And thank you. Once again, I can't. It means a lot to us. So I wish you continued good health. Please thank the team over there at Airbus for your joining us today, and I'll see you at the airport and maybe on an upcoming flight, and we'll get to meet in person, which would be really
I hope
nice.
so. I hope
Yes,
so. Yes,
yes.
absolutely. Thank you very
All
much
right,
for the opportunity.
sure. Au revoir, goodbye, and thank you.
Bye. Tschüss.